Good morning, good morning, good morning, everybody. I am so excited to be here with you guys, here with Myesha, our one of our resident artists of Exodus Summit. So excited to have you guys here. I know it has been a week for most of us, but we're gonna get through it together, right? We're gonna get through it together. Myesha is a. I'm gonna let you start with the introduction, Myesha. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I am Myesha, aka Creatively Yours, Myesha. I kind of came up with that a couple of years ago. But I am an artist, I am a teacher, I am a mentor. I've previously curated. I owned a gallery for almost 10 years. It was about eight and a half in the heart of the New Orleans Arts District and then in the Treme in New Orleans. I have worked in the Smithsonian. I have worked all over the world actually, and a couple of different museums as well. And right now I'm teaching gifted art. I teach gifted art, and I also am in the financial markets. I do some other things on that side. So that's who I am.
But if you're here because the name of the video intrigued you, wait, we're still here. We're talking about how to leave America. And that is one of the reasons that Myesha is my guest right now, because Myesha left America for, was it 3 years you were gone?
Too.
2 years. 2 years and spent a lot of time in Rwanda. So we're going to talk about leaving the US, and what it looks like to leave, what it looks like to come back, and how that experience helped shape Myesha. So super excited for this conversation. You guys, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and we'll see what's happening. Okay. Myesha, that on my end, that echo is back. Can y'all hear an
Okay.
echo or is it just me? Let's see what they say in the chat first before we change anything.
Okay.
I don't know why it wasn't there the first time. Let's see this. If this helps. Hello, hello.
Yes. Is it still echoing?
Okay, Adelia says no echo, so it's just maybe on my end that I can hear it.
Okay. Would you like me to turn echo cancellation back on?
No, leave it how it is.
All right.
If it's just me, I can ignore. Everybody else is fine. Just me. Okay, perfect. Let's do this. Myesha, talk to me about when you live in New Orleans and you lived in New Orleans for a long time. Um, Talk to me about when you thought you wanted to leave New Orleans.
Um, I knew because, as I said, I was a gallery owner, studio owner, excuse me. And at the same time, off and on, I was teaching art full time. And so the journey of entrepreneurship, it is harder than anyone can ever possibly imagine. So I was running a gallery. I was also doing paint and sip parties when they were like blowing up. So I was doing something like 16 a month. I had a team. I had, so I felt really, really responsible for them in that regards. And so when you're running a business, you're doing ordering, pay, lights, mopping the floor, painting the walls, customer service, the actual events, then creating also on the other side, creating work, selling work, dealing with those customers. And at one point, I was showing a different artist every month. That was a whole other thing. I had to stop that because then you have the customer service to the artists and then their clients. So it had become a lot. On top of that, in some seasons, business wasn't as good. So I might have had well, I would say 4 years where it was just like, oh my God. But then I had these seasons where it wasn't so good. So I was also working full time. So imagine all of that with the gallery side, making art, clients, selling art, payment plans, all of this, paint and sip parties, kids could doodle. I did kids classes. It was a lot. Layer that with a marriage that kind of felt not kind of that fell apart, and I never ever dreamed that would happen. My parents are married 50 years, so that was really a tough blow. And then friendships and things began to got really really muddy and mixed up. And so I knew, and this was like this was a little bit before COVID hit. I knew I needed a significant change.
Mhm.
And luckily, I had met, when I was in college, I had met friends who had come from different countries. I had been to different countries and saw people paying $100 a month for apartments that were better than mine. And so I'm talking about an apartment that had marble floors, beautiful wood cabinets. It was like brand new and it was $100 a month. Then I saw the light bill and the light bill was $7. And I'm like, wait, what? And I just couldn't believe that in other parts of the world, people were living, you know, decent lives for like less than a fraction. I won't even say a third. It was like a tenth of what I was paying in the US. So I always knew that I could go somewhere else in the world and live for a lower cost of living. Now, how to do that, I didn't know. I couldn't figure that part out. But when all of those things happened with the business and relationships, and I knew that I needed to, I felt like I was kind of inside cracking up. And a lot of it was me. You know, I can definitely say that I had some, you know, parts of me that I needed to turn inside and really, really look at. You know, like I really, really needed to look at. And I knew I had to get away in order to do that. And so I knew that internally for me because I'm a very introverted type person. And I do a lot of inner thinking and self reflection. And so I knew I had to get like really, really quiet and still in order to do that. And I knew I couldn't do that in my current environment because in New Orleans we turn up. No, just but yeah, it's part of the culture. But I knew I had to get away. I knew.
Okay. When did you know, when you knew you needed to get away, did you know that getting away wasn't just leaving New Orleans, you knew it was leaving the US?
I did because so I'd studied abroad in college
Hmm.
and I was 19, 8, 19, 20 maybe. And so I knew that coming completely out of my culture was a was a could be an internal mental and spiritual transformation
Okay.
because I'd experienced it, right? You have to become your senses have to become heightened, but you also have to be quiet enough to get the direction to receive what you need to know and navigate these new environments. And
Mhm.
so I had that experience, and I knew that I had to like pull away from my culture in order to really hear that still small voice that guides me.
Okay.
Because
And
I had stopped, I had lost that. So the still small voice is what guided me to open the gallery at 29, to become an artist, all these things. But I had started losing, I couldn't hear it. So I was like, okay, how? And so the relationships that were falling apart, I never in a million years thought they would fall apart. And I'm like, what am I doing? I couldn't hear the voice anymore. So I
Mhm.
knew I had to get away.
Okay. Um, when you knew you wanted to get away, was it like, I know I need to get away and I want to go to X place, or did finding your place take a little bit longer?
Uh, it took a little time. At first, it was Mexico, which is how I think I found Exodus Summit. So I can't, what's my girl name? I had heard about a little tiny town called Chapala,
Mhm.
and I was gonna go and do a little oh my gosh, what do we call it? Like a little, not a fellowship, but why can't I say this word when artists go away and we do our thing? So I found somebody that was going to sponsor me to just do that. And I was going to do it for like 2 or 3 months, right? It was a client
Uh-huh.
who was like, hey, you know, this is what I was going through. And we were sharing, a client slash friend. And I was just going to take a little sabbatical retreat in Mexico and Chapala. And started finding groups and people online who talked about this thing.
Okay.
Hmm.
Um, like you're saying residency, an artist residency, is
Yes,
that
an artist residency. What is wrong with me? Yes, an artist residency. So I was just gonna go and do a little residency.
Mhm.
Um, at this little place that I'd found and just be quiet for a couple of months. I was like, I just need 2 or 3 months, me and my art. Let me just go and hear the voice again.
Mhm. But that's not what happened.
No, that's not what happened.
All right, walk us through what happened.
So what wound up, I don't know the word, what wound up happening was, okay, so I'm joining groups, um, and some kind of way I found Exodus Summit,
Mhm,
and someone said, because I was saying that I wanted to go to Chapala, A, because it was close, B, because the weather, and C, it was extremely affordable from my perspective.
mhm.
And but I mentioned some kind of way in the group that I always wanted to go back to Africa because my first time of seeing like this very, very low cost of living was when I went to Africa.
Is that where you studied abroad?
No, I studied abroad in Italy, in
Okay,
Florence.
okay.
And so anyway, Florence, that's a different issue. I love Florence, but it is not the cost of living for what you get. But anyway, so somebody in the group, and this was definitely an Exodus Summit, was like when I was talking about the weather, and I really would love to go back to Africa, but da 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 da, the cost of living. All that. Somebody said, "Have you ever considered Rwanda?" And I was like, "Rwanda?" I had only heard the bad history of it, and I said no, but I went ahead and I Googled it. And I was like blown away by what the country had been able to do in the span of 25 years. And I'm watching all these YouTube videos and I'm just like, wow, this is different, right? So what I did was I was still working at the time. I was teaching art.
Mhm,
I said, okay, well, I'll go. And I had some healing issues, not just mentally, spiritually, emotionally, but I had a physical issue I needed to heal. So I said, well, I'll just go and visit for a short minute and come back. But when I went, I was like, whoa. And I found someone that could help me begin to heal. And I was like, you know what? When I got there, I was just blown away. I was like, wow, everything I saw online is what they said. It's really, true. And 90%. And so I just knew in my spirit, I was like, I need to stay. And so I called, my job. I said, hey, can I finish, my courses online? They said yes. And I wound up staying
So you went to how long were you planning on being in Rwanda when you went there?
2 weeks. I was going to go and come back just to see.
Mhm,
And but in my spirit, I was like, something is pulling me this way.
mhm.
So I kind of sort of knew, but I taught gifted art then.
Okay.
I was like, man, I wanted to finish the semester. I didn't really want to not, I wasn't ready to not work. I wasn't in that position to not work. So when I called them and I asked and I said, hey, can I finish these courses online and teach my classes online? They graciously said yes. And that was just a blessing because I had found some things that could help me begin to heal. And it was a deeper blessing because the slower pace of everything allowed me to begin healing
Mhm.
spiritually.
One of the things that comes up a lot of time when people talk about moving out of the US, moving somewhere else, making any kind of like transition in this space is that whether it's a reflection of internal resistance or whether it is perceived or real barriers, one of the first things I hear from everybody is, "It's gonna be hard, it's so hard. These are the challenges," right? Like, there are so many challenges in the way of the move, and I think it's interesting, and I'm not saying that that's not true for a lot of people, but I think it's interesting for you that, like, there didn't seem to be these challenges, right? Like, there were things lined up in a way that allowed you to do this, even when it wasn't even your actual intent.
That's exactly what happened. Because mind you, before I left, you guys had announced that I also had received the artist sabbatical money. I didn't get that
Definitely.
until the next year, which was fine, which was actually divine,
Mhm.
right? So, but when I left, it lined up because I was able to keep my job, and then because of how teachers work, it also paid me through that summer.
Mhm.
So then I came back because I was like, okay, well, I think I'm healed enough. What I was dealing with has started healing. I went back and I was in my position for like 2 or 3 months, and then I started getting inflamed, and everything started happening again. I started feeling stressed, depressed. Like I can't even understand how it all came just like woof right back on me. I can't explain that. So I went and told my principal, I said, hey, listen, I gotta go and heal this thing. I have to leave, and I asked, could I teach again? And he said no. And I was like, oh, well, they basically were like, nah, this, no. So I was like, okay, no worries. Well, I had a little small money in my retirement account. I took that because what I knew was that I was emotionally, spiritually, and physically more grounded and healed when I was in Rwanda.
Mhm.
So I took my retirement and I went back. Now, again, things are just lining up, right? Because I had gone, like I went back in November, a week after I went back, my mama died. So I came right back. Like I might have got to Rwanda Monday. My mama probably died the next Tuesday, which was
I'm so sorry.
y'all completely out of nowhere. Like completely. Like she was eating a sandwich. Like and my sister left it, she was eating a sandwich. Like it was completely out of nowhere. She died in a chair. She had a little night table and the sandwich was sitting on a table. And my sister, bless her, but she left, she just kept everything so we could just kind of anyway, that's another thing. But so I came right back and that money we kind of were using it for the funeral. And of course, Rwanda wasn't, terribly such a financial strain, so I had paid everything. But right after that, the artist sabbatical money came. And so when I got back to Rwanda, it was like the most surreal, right? It was surreal because I got back to Rwanda and my family, I have family now in Rwanda. I was telling them like, "Hey, I don't know, mama has died and and they were like, and I was like, this money I have, I don't know, and they were like, just come back. They were like, just come back, you need to come back. And I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go back. So I went back. And then I'm gonna say, seriously, maybe a couple of weeks after I was back, and this was the second year, the money from the artist sabbatical came. And that's when my real art sabbatical began
It's
because
amazing. So
that's all I did.
for
That's it. Go ahead.
those of you that don't know, on Stephanie's channel, the Vacarian Tour Community, every year for the past few years has pooled money, right? And I think the membership she runs as well, the money from that all goes to send a Black woman on a sabbatical. And Myesha was the first recipient. And so you were already in Rwanda, but you weren't necessarily, and you were healing, but your sabbatical was able to begin when you got that money a year into being away.
Yeah, well, I would say the first year was definitely very healing, and that was just purely physical stuff that was happening and emotional.
Mhm.
Because I think I landed uh I was so down. I don't know if I'll call it depression because depression didn't kick in until this after mom passed. But I was down, but when I got there, man, my emotions immediately were beginning to lift. But I was like down, 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 down before I left, which is ironic for me because I'm kind of up, you know, I kind of have a up personality, but before I left, I was down, 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 down. And so I forgot what you asked me.
We were just talking about how, like, the timing of it all. The
Oh,
when you, I want to back up a second though. You said that when you got to Rwanda, you started healing.
mhm.
What I want to dig a little deeper into that. What was it about being in Rwanda that allowed you to heal? Was it like seeing different types of healers than you were seeing in the US? Was it the pace? Was it the food? Talk to us a little bit more about what it was that you believe helped you heal in the US in a way that you couldn't heal in Rwanda in a way that you couldn't heal in New Orleans.
I think it was really just me slowing down, just stopping. You know, I didn't really go out anywhere. Um, and there's not a lot to do in Rwanda. The most I did was go to coffee shops, you know. So it was just and Rwanda is like springtime year round, except during the rainy season. It's like springtime, even during the rainy season, because during the day it's like springtime. And you might have a downpour. It's only about 15 minutes, and then the sun comes back out. Now sometimes you will have like a couple of days where it's just raining, 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 but it doesn't last long. And even in the summer, like the hottest might be 85 maybe. So
Mhm.
it was the weather, and I got there right before the rainy season kicked in. So it was just the weather. The weather was so nice. I love coffee. The coffee in Rwanda, I don't care what anybody, it's the best in the world. The coffee in Rwanda is amazing.
Mhm.
Um, and it was just me, everything that I'd known, everything that I built my identity on, I just put it down.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, it's weird because I started trying to do my YouTube videos. I was doing like little YouTube, and I bought paints and brushes and all these things with me, and I just couldn't. And I was like, I don't want to be an artist no more. Like that was in my mind somewhere. Like I don't want to do this no more. I'm just done with it. I barely wanted to tell people I was an artist while I was there. And I
Mhm.
stopped actually. Like that first year, I stopped telling people. They knew, I guess, because I had already messed up, I guess, and said it on the front end. Because then they were like, "Oh, you're an artist. You should go to this show. You should meet this artist and that artist." I didn't want to do any of that, and I didn't. I
Okay.
didn't.
So, like in the US, like your work is in the Smithsonian, right? And like you went to Rwanda and was like, but that's not me anymore.
That's how I felt the first year.
Okay. All
Well,
right.
I'm gonna say no, no, no. After that semester ended, once that summer came in, I was
Mhm.
like, I don't want to be an artist no more. I'm done. You know, the teaching. I knew I was going back, but I was like, this summer, I'm not an artist. I'm just Myesha. I'm not a former gallery owner. I'm not a nothing. I'm just Myesha. I didn't want to be associated with any of it because the things that had happened to me were so painful. Like wires got crossed. Just it was just painful things that had happened, and I didn't want to think about any of it. I didn't want to be an artist. I didn't want to. And my friends there were like, "You are not. Don't you ever say?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm just me.
Mhm.
I don't care nothing about. I didn't go to no art shows. I didn't want to meet any artists. I didn't want to. I did a couple of those things when I first got there, but it got to a point where I wanted to disassociate with it all.
And let's talk about resting, right? Because you said that like you wasn't like you said talk about healing, but you also said that it wasn't like you got there and you started taking a new medicine or seeing a new doctor. That wasn't it. It was just like putting things down. And I'm assuming some of that was just the rest you were able to take. So let's talk about the ways you were able to rest in Rwanda that you weren't able to in the US.
So I've always had very high overhead
Mhm.
because I've always had a business and I've always had my own personal life and overhead. And in Rwanda, I didn't have, not only did I not have a business, I also didn't have, my personal overhead wasn't the same. It was much lower because the cost of food is lower, my rent was lower, I didn't have a car note, I didn't have insurance. So there was no hustle, hustle, grind to do. I'm like I've lived hustle. Like I've been an entrepreneur since I was in sixth grade. Like I bought a couple of cars before I graduated high school, right? I've always been an entrepreneur my entire life. Hustle is my middle name, right? That is what I did, and I love being an entrepreneur. I consider myself a market woman. That's what I realize now. But what I'm realizing now as I'm as an older woman and gaining more having all this experience and wisdom is there is a very seasoned way to be a market woman. And the hustle and grind of it is not the way, right? I think we need to learn how to work smarter, not harder. Right? There
Mhm.
is a season in a time for hustle. There is. But working smarter and harder and letting your dollars work for you is far more wiser. And so in Rwanda, I just didn't have any of that. I didn't have my phone ringing. I didn't have friends. I didn't have, my friend groups. I didn't have my phone ringing. I didn't have the overhead. I didn't have all the bills. I had none of that. I had the one little bill I paid for the rent and my food. That was it. And the things that I was dealing with, like my body was really inflamed. It started going down. I could say I didn't change the way I ate, but I guess I didn't eat out as much.
Mhm.
I cooked everything. I wasn't taking any specific medicines. I had a lot of teas I was, taking here and there, or, drinking. But I wasn't seeing any healers. I wasn't taking any specific medicines, but my body became so much less inflamed. It is amazing. And when I
And
got back to the US for those 3 months, that inflammation came right back.
um, I want to stay on the healing, but you touched on something that I want to address for a second. You talked about the one little bill you paid. So, what were your expenses in Rwanda?
Uh, so the first year was just rent and food, literally, and I would say transport. And taxis are kind of, I would say, yeah, same thing you would pay for a little ride here, you would pay there. Like taxis in Kigali are a little. And I've heard people come from other countries like, whoa, the taxis here, but that's just what it is. So rent, food. Oh, you do have okay, so light bill, but the light bill was like $25 a month.
How much?
$25.
Okay.
Internet, and that's like $25. And that was it. And then like going from here to there, and then like every now and again I would go out to a coffee shop and just hang out.
Do you mind sharing how much your rent was?
So the first year it was, I want to say 700.
Okay.
Hmm.
And food, can you ballpark that?
I would say about 40, $50 a week.
Okay, so that's like $160. So, all in, were your expenses like under or around $1,000 a month?
No, I would say 15 because transport going from here to there.
Oh, was that expensive?
Well, and I'm saying coffee shops, food, because eating out still was like, you still pay, it seems almost the same to me because like a good meal is still like $15. Well, I guess in the US it's not that in the restaurant. You pay like 25, 30.
Mhm.
But so $15. So I might spend 20 or $30 just to go out. Let's say that. To leave the house.
Okay.
Hmm.
All right. But okay, that makes sense. That does that include your transportation expenses to leave and come back?
Hmm.
Okay.
And then
That's
like internet, lights, and then random, um, hey, let's take a ride to Musanze, random stuff like that.
okay. So under $1,500, and it doesn't sound like you were lacking for anything, right? You were
Mm-mm,
going out, you were doing things, you were having adventures,
mm-mm.
you were eating out. Um,
I
Y-
wasn't really doing adventures. I mean, every now and again,
Okay.
yeah. But let me say this, that was that year, right? Because the second year I got a car. Because to
Ooh.
me, I didn't buy a car, I rented a car. So
Mhm.
expenses were different. So I don't want anybody to think that 15, and I'm only saying this because a lot of people get in trouble thinking that that's the real budget.
Mhm.
Like it can be very deceptive.
Mhm.
So then add in the car and gas. Um, yeah,
Okay. Um, did getting a car versus a taxi lower your expenses or raise your expenses?
I would say it raised it because the car was like another, I want to say I paid five, it might have been like 500 a month,
Okay.
and then gas. And
Okay.
so gas is not, yeah, gas is gas, like everywhere in the world. So then you
Okay.
pay another like hundred, a couple, a couple of hundred for that. And so again, let me just say this. That's one of the things that I had to again look at myself as an entrepreneur, as a woman growing. I didn't budget well. I didn't budget wisely. Something that I'm really, really a stickler for now. Like my life has changed because I've decided that I'm going to employ discipline in everything I do. That's the right word, employ or deploy, one of those. Discipline. And I didn't have it there. So
Mhm.
how I was spending, it could have been better controlled, but I probably was spending the second year well over 2,000 a month for sure.
Okay. But this is not, I guess I'm trying to get an idea of like how those expenses, like how they equate to your quality of life. Is that you're not saying that everybody who lives in everyone who plans on, I want to be specific about this. Every foreigner that wants to move to Rwanda is going to have to spend at least $2,000.
I would think so. Let me say this because 700 is most Americans now that I know are paying $1,000 a month plus.
Okay. In
So
rent?
even in rent, even before I left, that's what it was, right? About that. If you want to live like, we see videos that say, oh, you can get, get places that are like $400 and $500. Well, we're not used to places of $300 where you go into the apartment and the kitchen, the sink, there's no backsplash and it's just like this pipe coming out of a wall. We don't like that's not, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that if that's, how you're living or whatever, but in the US you don't normally see that or live, in that way. So you're not going to want to stay in the places that are 300, 400. Though they may be decent, they may be okay. You're you're gonna, I'm gonna say about 900 to 1,000 is what really, yeah, when you
It's
get
realistic
to,
for rent. Yeah.
mhm.
I think I struggle a lot when I see those videos. They're like, you can live for this price in this place because I could, but I won't. Right? Like,
Right, you
I think a lot of,
could.
right? As someone who has lived before without indoor plumbing for years, I know that I would do anything possible in I need to do to not experience that again.
Right,
Right? And
right,
so and I know that there are people who will always live like that,
right.
and that is their life, and that's gonna have to be okay with them.
Yeah.
I don't wanna live in those places, right? Like, I just
If
I've
you
done
can avoid it,
my time. I've done my time. I don't wanna do that again.
Right. And
But I
listen, I've taken my fair share of cold showers, listen, I get it. Months. But
cold and outside, baby, cold
and
and outside.
listen. But if I can avoid it, then yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go and pay 1,000.
I think that there's that, and this is what I was kind of trying to nail down with you. A lot of times people are like, I saw on the internet that I can get a place for this much, but I don't often think that people do a good job of showing what that place is going to look like, right? Or where it's going to be. Because I live in Mexico City, you can get a place for under $500 here. It may be on the roof of like a 20, maybe 15-story building with no elevator, right? It or no working elevator.
Right.
Or it
They don't
may
tell the whole
they don't
story.
tell the whole story. Or
They
maybe
don't
out
tell the whole story.
in the mountains where it's gonna take you like 3 hour, 2 to 3 hours to get into town, right? You may not have running water, you may not have windows, you may not have doors. Like a
Or it may
real
not be the area that you want to be in.
right? And
And
like those are parts of a conversation I think we all need to whatever someone I always say, like if someone is willing to tell you what it costs for them to live their life abroad, they should also be willing to tell you what that life abroad looks like. Right? If they're like, "Oh no, I moved to Panama and I only pay $800 a month all in." Like, you got some photos you can show me? Like, you got and not that it's not possible, but I think that we like saying a number in a vacuum isn't helpful. Like, I pay this amount of money isn't helpful if you don't know. First of all, let's go back for a second to something that you hit on. If I don't know when you rented an apartment, because my apartment that I rented 5 years ago, you're not going to get this for this price in this
that's
city,
huge. That's huge.
right?
Because Americans, like, we raise the prices. Like,
I see. I struggle with that, right? Because in most, in a lot of places, Americans foreigners don't own property to the extent that locals own property. And so the prices are raised, but there's usually a local owner who's like, I'm raising the price. And so I think it is a little too one-sided for me to say that like foreigners go somewhere and raise the price there if the person who raised the rent is actually the local person, right? Like it takes two to do that dance, right?
I never
Like
thought about it like that, but you're right.
girl, and some people will just be like, oh, it's capitalism. If they can make more money, they should make more money. Cool, but I don't think you can complain about capitalism. I don't think you can complain about gentrification and leave capitalism out of it when capitalism is the true cause, right, of gentrification. The rent is going up because the landlord was like, I can make more money. So, and then the people who can pay more money, and that's not always foreigners. Sometimes it's just other local people. Um, or people will say like, a lot of times being in Mexico City as long as I've been here, you see a lot of foreigners blaming other foreigners for paying more money than they should pay. But like, if the prices have gone up and the only prices they're seeing are these outrageous prices, is the answer that they don't move there at all and no one pays that rent? Or like, you know what I mean? Like it's just such a
I love
complicated.
that perspective. Thank you for sharing that because the guilt sometimes that I felt, I'm like, yo, am I really like gentrifying their neighborhood and the point? But really and truly, the landlords don't have to raise these prices the way they do.
They don't have to.
They
But
don't.
like
But
they
they,
they care more, and this is not to take one side of the equation. This is not to remove any guilt from one side of the equation. This is not to say
right.
that
Because
poor
I still,
people aren't creating impact.
mhm.
But if you, a local, care more about the money in your pocket than about raising rents locally, how much can you know what I mean? Like, what can I do as a foreigner? If you're like,
Right, because I really want to pay the local price. And that's the other thing. You better believe there's a local price,
there
right?
is a local price.
There
I
is a
want
local price.
a
I
local
am
price.
aware. I am
But
aware
if
of it.
you hear my voice and I can no or see me and I can no longer pay the local price, how is that a me issue? Right? Like unless we're saying that all immigration around the world needs to stop. And then there's also something that bothers me a little bit, and it's that like people from countries that are I'm sorry, y'all. There are two issues that came up for me real quick. One is that everyone from America is rich and everyone everywhere else is poor. And so like everyone who moves creates the same impact on everyone over there. And I'm like, that's just not how the world works. Right? Like a lot of people leaving America are not rich. right? They're moving on their Social Security, which may be more than some people in other countries make, but it probably does not make them rich in that country. It might make them middle class, right? There are a lot of Americans who live in Mexico who are not rich by Mexican standards. They're not poor, but they're not rich, right? And there are a lot of so that kind of just like flattens the conversation a bit, right? Like Americans move abroad and gentrify everywhere because Americans have all this money and nobody else in the world does. And I know you saw some rich people, some rich Africans.
Listen, I tell people all the time, Africans ain't poor. What are y'all talking about?
Listen,
Like
right? Like
Africans are not poor. I saw more G wagons. That's the if, for the people who don't know, that's
this,
those
the,
Mercedes
the
trucks or
big,
whatever.
the big. That's what I talk
Listen,
about in
God,
my
we got
building.
some G wagons and Range Rovers rolling around in that thing by Rwandans.
That's actually the example I use in my build. My parking lot is full of G wagons. You know what's in my two spots in my parking lot? Nothing, because I ride the bus, right? Like, and my building is not full of foreigners. It's full of people from Mexico, maybe other parts of Mexico, but it's full of people from Mexico.
It's
Shauna
so
says,
funny because like the my car broke. Well, it stopped.
Mhm,
This is like a couple of weeks before I left, a week or two. I was trying to close my bank account, and the guy who helped me rolled up in a Range Rover. Like I was like, I'm gonna go ask him if he, well, he didn't roll up. I went asked him if he could help me because
mhm,
I was like, let me go and talk to this guy. He looks like he can help.
mhm,
So he was in a Range Rover.
mhm. Uh,
So this whole ideology of
we're all so poor and we're ruining their economy. And I'm like, the world is more complicated than
it
that.
is, but the capital, I'm not going to say the capitalist because I'm a capitalist, right? Whatever. But, um, people who are in business do see opportunity and they take it.
And they take it, right?
And
I
they
want
take
I
it.
want to get the local price. I'm not gonna get the local price. The people
Mhm.
who show up, if you want to rent in my building right now, you're I'm in a condo building, so everyone gets to charge, but owners get to charge whatever they want to charge. But I see studios for rent for more than my two-bedroom costs, right? A foreigner showing up now is going to pay that studio price because that's what they see that's what the market is bearing now, right? Like, and my building isn't full of foreigners who gentrified this neighborhood. It's full of people from other parts of Mexico.
Yeah, that part. And that's like when you ask me how much did I pay for my rent, I'm like, yeah, 700 2 years ago. Like before I left, people that were coming were easily in at the $1,000 level. Easy.
Mhm.
So
Mm,
like, please don't run with that, y'all. Please, because when I was looking, I was watching videos that were saying that the rent was between 300 and 500. So that's what I thought I could get, and no, I was at the 700. So, and I was calculating, oh my God, if I could pay 300 a month, da 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 da. No, 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 no. And so they're doing well. I haven't looked at what's going on in Rwanda since I left, but I can only imagine that inflation is happening there as well because
mhm.
prices were inching up as I was
Inflation.
there. There was a restaurant I loved. The meal was like $12. It was my favorite meal in Kigali. Before I left, I went to that restaurant. That same meal had gone up to 15.
Yeah,
So I guarantee you, if I get back, I'm planning to go sometime next year. That same meal will probably be 17.
right. And I think that there's a careful dance to be done between like I moved to this place and everything is so cheap compared to the US that it doesn't really matter what I spend on things, which I
Oof.
see sometimes, right? Like that is a little tiny bit toxic. Um, I At least it's cheaper than I talked to someone once who was like, well, it doesn't really matter. Like the Ubers are so cheap here. And I was like, they're like 4 times what they cost when I moved here. I'm like, yeah, but I'm from New York, so we're so cheap. So I just did it. And I'm like, that doesn't like that part of it doesn't help if it's just for like I can spend whatever I want because it's cheaper than New York. That's what will lead to the prices looking like New York one day, right? Um, but every every price you pay is because someone set that price,
Mhm.
right? And whether that is a corporation price gouging like we're seeing, whether and some of that is what we're going to see in the impact. Like your restaurant might have gone up in price because their suppliers went up in price.
Mhm.
Everything has this cause and effect, and we're seeing it in the world. It's not so easy just to point your finger at one person and say you did this, right? Because there's a lot of things that go into play.
Yeah.
Um, but anyhow, this was not the point of this video. Yeah, the
But it is part of, expatriating,
yeah,
definitely huge part.
yeah, no, rent. I went out of my way to make sure I was renting from a Mexican landlord. And every year she's like, so what we increasing this rent to this year? And I'm like, girl, calm down. But every year she's like, rent's gotta go up.
It don't
I know
have
you
to.
ain't got no mortgage. I know, I know her rents don't need to go up, but capitalism.
Only to meet the increase in taxes. That's the only.
Ain't no increase in tax. The taxes on this place are like less than 1 month rent payment, much less than 1 month rent payment. Probably like 5 days of rent is what the taxes here are cheap. But yeah, no, ain't no increase. Girl, you know, like last year I was talking to her and I was like, well, because I'm trying to fight this rent increase, but like be subtle about it. Like, well, I've been out there looking at the market, looking at other apartments. She said she looked over text. She looked me in my eye and said, so how's that going? Oh, because I'm paying a lot less than I would pay if I had to go into the streets right now. I don't like that. But yeah, it's figure the whole point of this was like figuring out what it's going to cost you to live in a new country isn't as easy as watching a YouTube video, right? Myesha mentioned her rent
I.
2 years
Mhm.
ago. My rent is cheaper than still today with all the rent increases. It's cheaper than it would have been before my negotiations 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So there's just a lot to know that goes into it.
There is something I do want to say that I forgot. And listen, by no means am I an expert on the market and what in Kigali and what's happening. I'm gonna be honest about that.
Mhm.
But I do know that houses are cheaper than apartments. So I will say that. So I
Okay.
know people like you can get a whole big 4-bedroom house, for less than 1,000. So right, but I didn't need all of that space, and B, how you find it is like ambiguous. It's not like how we find houses.
Mhm.
Realtor to me is kind of ambiguous. So it's not the house hunting and house finding thing is not like how we do it. So
Yeah. And there's a lot of part of that goes into um how, like you said before, how we're used to living and the amenities that we want, and how our lives are different than how the local people live, right? So like here, houses tend to be multi-generational, right? If you Wherever you live, you're living with the grandkids, the parents, the grandparents, maybe even some great grandparents. Generally, that's how a Mexican house is set up.
oh,
Generally,
okay. I thought you meant in the US.
no,
Okay.
no, no,
Okay.
no, no.
Right, right,
Talking
right, right, right. Right.
about Mexican house set up. So it doesn't matter that you have to be home. Like a lot of houses are gated in, right? So if you have a package coming from somewhere, they're either going to knock and leave it like someone answers who's home and gets it, or you're not going to get that package. Or they're like, right, they leave it, they give it to you, or they leave it on the street, or they just never leave it, right? Um, and that works in multi-generational houses because someone's probably going to be home. if you have 3 or 4 generations in a house. Me by myself, I have to be home in order to get mail, to get packages, to get anything delivered, to let anyone into the house. I wouldn't have any like I have there's security in this building. I forget to lock my door all the time. You got to get through like 3 levels of security to get to me. Whatever, right? Like no one's coming up to this floor. I shouldn't forget to lock it, but I do because I feel so safe. I wouldn't feel like that in a house, right? And so that's one of the reasons that like an apartment for me works much better than a house because a house is set up generally here for like multi-generational living. Also, if you have a house, this is part of the thing to consider when you want to move to a new place. It's hard to get a house here because 4 generations live in it, right? It's probably paid off. They ain't got no mortgage because mortgages are hard to
Oh,
get,
so you,
right? Like,
apartments.
so how,
Okay.
when are they gonna move out? When are they gonna move out for you to move in? And there's no land to build anything. There's land. If there's land, they're building up, right? Not out. So where is this house you're going to get? 4 generations live in it. They're not moving. They are not going anywhere, right? Someone will marry in and live there before they will move out and rent it out or do anything else. So no. So like houses aren't really not a thing. Generally, unless you want to spend a lot of money on a house for those reasons, right? To get a house, it's generally a lot more than an apartment here. Whereas in Rwanda, it's different. So I think that's something like you just kind of have to get an idea of how people are living and like what kind of housing is available in these different cities. Let's back up a second though, and let's talk about how you prepared to leave the US before you left.
I mean, like I said, I was just supposed to be going for like 2 weeks. And so I didn't do a lot. I mean, I I didn't do a lot, but I knew that probably by the next summer I was going to decide whether or not I was going to keep my job or leave it.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I still had my car, everything.
Hmm.
And my niece was just, holding things down for me. My car, checking on my apartment, that kind of thing. So I still had it. I didn't prepare a lot. I didn't Okay, well, I'll talk about when I left the second time. So when
Okay.
I left the second time, which was after I had came back and taught, then I just sold everything. I
You
mean,
sold the
I don't
car.
know. I rented it.
Okay.
Just so happened, my sister's, my nephew's godfather needed a car. And I was like, okay, well, you can rent mine. And so I actually still have it. I'm still renting it. But I just sold everything. And if I had known I was coming back, I probably wouldn't have, but I sold everything. So everything in this apartment now is new, all the way down to the iron. I sold but well, my sister gave me some pots and stuff.
Mhm.
But yeah, I was like, I need to have a housewarming party. Like I literally, and I had everything you could imagine for a kitchen because I used to
Mhm.
bake bread as well. Um, I had everything you could imagine. I'm talking about from the food processor to the blenders to the juicers, everything about my juicer to Kigali. But I had everything, cast iron skillets. I just either gave it all away or sold it.
Mhm.
Living room, I think I just put that outside. Bedroom, I sold it. And that wound up selling like 2 days before I left again. And that was it. And clothes, I just got rid of it. I gave it away to my cousins, my cousins, or I just dropped it off and donated it. I was unattached to everything. I was like, I'm detaching from everything. So like I talk to some of my friends and I go in their homes and they have so much stuff and they're like, I don't even know where to begin. And my suggestion is just one little room at a time and just let it go. And if you don't want to let it go, the little stuff that you want to keep, I did have 2 boxes of containers or whatever that I kept at my mom's house.
Mhm. Okay.
So even right now, I still need to go get it because it's in my sister was living with my mom. She was helping take care of her. She was having some health issues, and so when mom passed, my sister kept stayed in the house, kept the house, and all of those two little 3 containers are still there. So at some point, I'll go and get them. But that's all I kept, which was like plaques of my degrees and books that I may not have wanted to throw away, like signed cookbooks or, and they may just like, listen, if I had 5 signed cookbooks, I chose 2. So I just pared everything down. If,
Mhm.
what was that? I saw balloons.
Yeah. You do the peace sign, it's a setting. Never mind.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if I had, like I used to have 60 easels because I did paint and sit
Oh,
parties.
that's right.
I pared it all the way down. I kept 15.
Mhm.
And that's in one of the containers. I had uh yeah, no. I think I pared my life down to I'm looking at my shoes right now. I have literally I left with maybe 3 pairs of shoes. And
Mhm.
right now I kind of keep that principle. I have a pair of tennis, 2 pair of flats, 1 pair of heels, and a pair of boots. That's it. I just let go and now I love this minimalist kind of life that I live. I love it. I don't
Good.
have a lot of stuff anymore and I don't seek to collect a whole lot of stuff.
Mhm. Before you left the first time, you joined my Move Abroad and Sabbatical coaching program from Burnout to Bliss, and then like 2 months later, 2 or 3 months later, you were gone. I was like, "Girl, what happened?"
I had
Uh,
already been thinking about it for so long. Well, masterminding it in my head, I just, the window opened up.
yeah, and that's I think is a really beautiful thing, and we talked about this a bit earlier, is that like things lined up for you. They just like lined up. You were in a place, and instead of seeing the reasons you couldn't stay, you just made it work, right? I know that's not going to be everyone's story, but I do think that for all of us, we should be looking for alignment in and like how things align in our life and how things come together. And like, you know, as Billy already said in the comments, the universe unfolds as it should, right? So like allowing the nice things to like turn into more nice things, right? Like you were there, you wanted to stay, you knew there was some extra money coming, you stayed, right? Like you made it happen in a way that other people with the under the same set of circumstances might not have. I think some of that is just um, like a mindset thing,
I
right?
think so, and I think also too, especially if you're in my case, if you're in my situation, no kids, no significant other, um, I think that's a different, unique situation too. Most of it holding you back is really fear,
Hmm.
fear of the unknown, and I have a high tolerance for that. That's just like when I went and studied abroad in Italy. I didn't know anybody that had ever done that, and my family and friend group was like, "You where? Why? Who does that?" It's so because I was this was like in 98, what, 2000, 2001, maybe? No, I'm sorry, it was 2004, something like that. So 20 years ago, I didn't even have a camera. That was like digital cameras kind of were popular, but nobody was doing that. My point is, sometimes fear will cripple you. Fear of the unknown will cripple you.
Hmm.
But the truth is this, and there is danger, right? But the truth is this, most people in the world want the same things: love, peace, prosperity, and, a good, healthy, peaceful life. And so I think I read the statistic one time that 13% of any population are the bad people. 13% is not 90% are the bad people and the other 13% are good. So you're going to run into What is that? 80, Lord, me and
87?
that. 87% more good people than bad people. I have this, I can tell this story when I was in Italy. Crazy now, I was a young girl looking back on this, but I had went to London and I got back to Venice and was supposed to catch the train from Venice to Florence. Well, me and my friend, I missed the train because we hobnobbing in London, having fun, whatever. I missed the train. I get to Venice too late to get back to Florence. It's raining, it's dark. I only had enough money to get back. I'm 19 something years old, 20 maybe. I called my mom. It's Sunday evening. It's 11 o'clock in Florence, but it's like 5 o'clock in. And I'm like, Mama, I need some money. And she was just like, what? How am I going to Western Union you money right now? Along comes this man with the umbrella, and he was like, I'm literally standing in the rain in the dark in Venice. And he says, what's wrong? I had 30 euro in my pocket. I said, I need a hotel. He says, a German pianist in Florence who spoke English. He said, I know a hostel. I can take you there. I followed the man. I wasn't stupid, right? I'm like, really? He's like, yes, it's just right. Da, 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 da. And I'm like, okay, okay. So literally the hostel was 25 euro. I had enough euro. I didn't have to call my mama Monday. I was so proud of myself. Monday morning, I got up and took my 5 euro and got back to Florence. But my point is this, and it was the hottest shower I had the entire time I was in Italy at this hostel
Okay.
that was overlooking this beautiful little river. When I woke up in the morning, I was like, oh my gosh.
That's nice.
So my point is that, yes, that was foolish looking back on it now, but our fear of people and our fear of, things in the world, it'll stifle,
Mhm.
us going. And there are more people that are willing to help you. That's what I love about Mexico. Mexicans are so willing to help. I feel like Mexicans are the nicest people in all of my travels in the world. But there are far more people willing to help you than that are ready to hurt you. Now, you do have to watch out for the ones who are there to hurt you because they are ready to scam you. They are ready to take your money. They are ready to play you. They know you're not from around here, but there are far more people who are willing to help you. That's why I love the book The Alchemist so much. Have you read it?
Mhm.
I mean, Santiago, he got totally played out of his whole inheritance. But the man in the glass shop, the shopkeeper was willing to help him in such a way that propelled him all the way to his destiny, right? So we have to be willing to look out for the shopkeepers. Keep an eye out for the people at the bar that took his money, or he took him in the market and took his money. But there are so many shopkeepers out there who are willing to help you
Mhm.
and love on you.
Yeah. I think it's hard because in today's day and age, I don't know that I would have followed that the German pianist in the dark in a strange country. I don't know if I would have followed him
I
in
think
19.
about that now, like,
I
what?
don't think I would have followed him. I don't think I would follow, like, I don't know what situation I would have to be in to follow him now, or whether even in following him, I would constantly be like, but I got to be ready to fight, right?
To
Like,
this day, I think my mama just started praying because my mama was a praying woman. She was a praying woman. You hear me? I think my mama must have started praying and that man showed up with this umbrella, with this big old umbrella, and took me to this hostel that was literally 25 euro. I had 30 euro in my pocket. My mama must have started praying because now I'm like, I didn't know anything about human trafficking at the time. I'm like, girl, you could have been. I look back on it like you were so stupid. You could have
could
been.
have,
You could have been trafficked. You could have been anything.
right? But
Anything.
like Anita saying she had an umbrella sharing moment in Colombia and got in a car as well. Totally,
So
like,
I
listen,
totally get it. Thank you,
we've all been
Anita,
there
for
and done something. We're looking back
listen.
and be
Oh,
like, oh,
one
that's
one more thing I want to say too, though. What I learned from being in Kigali and being in Rwanda, and it's so crazy. I hadn't thought about this. A lot of places in the world, it is illegal to have a gun. Every other person is not walking around with a gun on their hip.
uh,
Like, I remember
there's
I was sitting in a car in Rwanda. It was dark. And I'm like, everybody that passed, I'm like, I'm like, what? And the person, he's like, calm down. I'm like, what you mean? I'm like, he was like, I said, somebody could shoot us. What? He was like, you mean pow pow? I'm like, yes. He was like, nobody has a gun. And I'm like, what? And my
There,
nervous system calmed down. And I see people will bump into you. And as an American, you're like, they're way up the street. Nobody's even thinking about that bump. It's no big deal. It's like you realize that you have PTSD. You have to calm
do,
down and let all
do.
that go.
That is, you
Like
said
you are safer.
you are. There is one gun store in all of Mexico. Not
Oh
Mexico
my
City,
gosh.
in the entire country. There is one gun store.
I don't think
It is on
Rwanda.
a it is on a military base. In order to have to get a gun, you have to tell them the reason. You have to, and they have to be like, that sounds like a good reason. Like, I am hunting or I work in security kind of thing. Not, I want to go shoot things. And and they're also not selling like them ridiculous guns. Right? Like,
You can't get a
it's
gun.
you.
You see little kids walking. I remember the first time I saw a little 5-year-old walking up the street by themselves. This was a long time ago in Africa. And I remember telling my friend, oh my God, somebody's going to, what's going to happen to this kid? And he was like, calm down. If somebody touches their kid, there will be justice tonight. But nobody's going to touch the kid. Nobody's going to touch this kid. And then in Kigali and Rwanda, it's normal to see a 4-year-old and a 5-year-old walking up the road from school.
Mhm.
Like nobody's gonna touch these kids. These children are safe.
I think, and that's one of the things that comes up a lot. So you've touched on two things that when women tell me they don't know about moving abroad, these are two things that come up: safety and like health. And it's like just leaving the US, just leaving,
I'm glad you brought up health.
just leaving, right? It like the weight of feeling unsafe, having that off your back will improve your health automatically,
It will
right?
because your like defenses.
Ooh,
And let me say this, my best OBGYN appointment happened in Kigali.
really?
I mean, it wasn't this beautiful, amazing facility that we're used to, and the appointment was like maybe 12, $15 maybe, but it was kind. It was kind, it was gentle, it wasn't rushed. I
Mhm.
was like, ah, I felt calm. I didn't feel like, okay, Rush, what's up, what's up, what's up? Let's get this down. Let me put you on the thing. Okay, just have to put it in. It wasn't like that, and I just appreciated that. I appreciated that. It wasn't this over luxurious, top notch, brand new medical facility, right? But it was compassionate, and I will never forget.
Mhm. When
That
I
I
was in Senegal, I had to go to the doctor, and I walked into one hospital and was like, "Nah, dog, no, no."
I love
Found
Senegal.
another one, and I went in there, and it wasn't the same luxurious whatever, but like there was no wait. Saw two doctors. Was in there for just putting fluids in me, in there for hours. They were like, "Whatever, just hang out." Just hang out, like, it's fine. There was no rush, there was no this. It was like, "Okay, go upstairs and go get tested, and then come back here, and then we'll blah, blah." And it just felt like if I said I wasn't ready to leave, they would have been like, "Okay."
Oh, that's the other thing. I didn't say that. And before I say this other thing, but Rwanda is organized and efficient.
Mhm,
So they are organized, they are efficient. But the other thing I didn't say was that that's also what I learned is you just slow down. You don't have to rush and do anything. I remember one time I asked this lady, I'm like, what? Because I was trying to get a something to go somewhere, and I was like, there's nobody in line. What's going on? She was like, you can wait. And I looked at myself and I said, you know what? You can wait. And I learned to just sit and be patient. Like, if the line is just not moving, you just wait. I've learned to just sit
just
and
wait,
wait. My
just wait.
patience level is through the roof. So now, like having this conversation, oh, my should have been like, okay, yeah, what's up? What's up? What's the next question? Let's get it done. Now,
Mhm.
whatever. You
We just
can
gonna
wait.
talk. We
You
can
can just,
wait, wait.
we just gonna
It's
talk.
it's funny, so I'm in Spanish class right now, and for me and 5 men. Mm. And the one that's been there the longest in Mexico, the longest has been there for 5 years, for 1 year. I'm the person I've been there 5 years, so I've been here the longest. Um, but these guys are always saying, we're learning Spanish, right? And they're always saying, but that's not how you do it in English. And the teacher's like, okay. And then they go, but no, because this should be before this. And how come the name is before the question mark? Because that's not how it would work in English.
They're American?
Girl, not
They're American?
very much like you need it, the vibe. And I don't know if this is what they intend, but the vibe is you need to justify to me why this makes sense because it doesn't make sense to me. And I'm sitting there and she's just like, oh, okay, that's not how you do it in English, but like, what are we learning? Right? Like, we're learning Spanish. And every class, this moment happens. And I'm just like I'll get frustrated and be like, I hate all these rules. Right? Like they don't make sense. But my frustration isn't like I'm in a new country and they're not doing things the way they would do them.
Oh, that's huge. That's
That's not my
huge.
frustration. My frustration is like, this is hard to learn. Leave me alone. Sometimes I'll just be like, oh no, I hate that. Like, I'm so sorry. Like, I
You
hate,
know,
oh, she'll say like, yes, there's a rule. And I'll ask a question. She's like, oh yeah, that's an exception to the rule. And I'll be like, I hate that like I can't figure out the rules because everything has like 6 or 7 different exceptions. But I'm not going to be arguing with you talking about that's not, but how does that? And that's something that when you move abroad, you really have to grow out of the like, that's not how that would work. That's not how you would structure that sentence in English.
I would love to get your feedback on this.
Oh, okay. Well,
I feel like, and I experienced this when I was in college too, studying abroad. But I've seen it and witnessed it even in Kigali amongst some of my fellow Americans. I feel like we take a sense of Americanism and don't know how to drop it. And
yeah.
you're in a new culture and country, right?
Mhm.
Because I kind of see it a little bit as elitism, and a lot of Americans won't agree with me that we'll have an elitist attitude, and this is what I mean. Well, the water stays hot for more than 5 minutes in the U.S., and it's like, but we can't run that amount of electricity
Right.
here. You know, you're
No,
in.
it is elitism. It is. It. Okay. I agree with you in the fact that like a lot of people. I say this with love as someone who helps Black women move abroad and take career breaks. A lot of people who move abroad aren't ready to move abroad. They just want to move into
A
they
cheaper.
US. And maybe it's not cheaper. Maybe there's a different. Not everyone wants to move because of prices, right? Maybe there's something about the U.S. that they want. Maybe it's the weather. I want to move. I want to move to a beach in.
Playa.
Woo, no, because of the election, I've seen this coming up so much recently in groups of Black people online. I'm looking for a place where they speak English, where it's inexpensive, where the weather is great, where it's really safe. And I'm like, baby, if that place existed, everybody you know would be there. Like you run down like your perfect list of everything you want. You're not in that place in the US, right? You haven't found this perfect place to move to in the US. It does not exist. But do you expect that it exists somewhere else?
For cheaper.
And
And
with
it's
English,
just gonna make way for
oh my
you.
gosh. And
But
I'm like, if that perfect place existed, you couldn't afford it. None of us could. Because it's perfect, right? Like it's the place it's the place everyone would want to be. I said, okay, all right, that's fine. But there's so much of that without the thought of like when you move abroad, you have to be prepared that every place you could possibly live is going to have some things you don't like. There are things I don't like
facts.
about Mexico.
Facts.
There are things I don't like about it.
Facts.
but I love this city. And so I'm willing to deal with those things, right? Like I'm willing to deal with those things
And not try to change them for
and not try to,
your, for your pleasure. That disrupts the culture.
girl,
I'm
now.
from New Orleans. Listen, people have moved to New Orleans. We have second lines, basically parades on Sunday
Mhm.
mornings. They start at 11. People have moved to New Orleans and called the police on the second lines.
That's
What are
crazy.
you,
'Cause I
what,
still can't imagine the police being doing anything but being like, "Go back to
what's
bed,"
wrong with
or like,
you? Right.
"Have some brunch. Go
And
somewhere."
you, and let me say this because this is very important. You have now created enemies in your community, whether it's a soft enemy or a hard enemy. You've now created an enemy because you've called the police on the culture. So
Right.
you gotta be very careful and just sit back. Here's what I definitely would like to say. If I leave with nothing else, I say this. If you move into a country, a culture, community, anywhere, sit back for a year and just relax, chill. See what's going on, catch the vibe. You calling the police on every other little thing or complaining about every other little thing. All you're doing is frustrating yourself because they're not changing. And you're creating known and unknown enemies. You're just frustrating yourself. Why would they check? You're the newcomer. Like, relax, accept. If everybody goes over here and get their water out the well, out the bucket, go get your water out the well in the bucket until you can figure out a different way to do it. You landing there and saying, no, in the US, we get bottles of water. It's like, what are you talking about? Nobody cares what y'all are doing in the US. You are in a new community, new environment. You have to just relax and allow and not rock the boat in that way. And I think it's kind of rude, when we a friend of mine in Rwanda, we were saying we should have. Oh, let me say this. Anybody thinking about going to Rwanda? We were thinking about having we should have some kind of small orientation for our friends when they come because people don't talk loud in Rwanda. So when you're in the restaurant and you're having this whole big conversation and it's like this, it's really kind of rude because actually
Mhm.
people talk like this.
Mhm.
When we got to the airport, the man was asking my niece. I brought her with me the first time I went, and he was saying something about the passport, and she was like, "Huh? What? Is he talking?" I had to pull her out the line. I said, "We'll be back." I said, "We're in their country." I said, "You open your ears to hear him more. I can't hear him either, but just ask him. I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? Match him. Meet him." But you
Mhm.
don't get to feel like you get to speak up. No, the culture is they speak like this, and the women speak very low, and you have to open
Mm.
your ears to listen. And I noticed when I came back, my tone was very low, and my
Okay.
sisters were like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Oh, what you mean? I'm just talking real soft like this." And we just have to have an orientation maybe with somebody who's lived there so that you can get those little idiosyncratic things that you don't know because it
Mhm.
is quite rude. I was sitting in a coffee shop one time in Rwanda and in walks three Black American women just, doing how we do. Hey, and it was, I thought it was cute and fun, but I'm noticing everybody around like, what in the entire F is
Mhm.
going on? And they're not noticing it because it's just, we happy, we free. And I'm like, whoa, they don't know yet that the culture is quiet.
Right. Yeah.
And when I asked somebody about it, I asked another Rwandan, they said, because it's nobody else's business what you're talking about. Nobody should be able to hear your conversation. And I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. We don't
Mhm.
care, but okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
And so we have to be cognizant of
Mhm.
that. And also in New Orleans, everybody says, "How you doing? Hello." We speak in Rwanda. That's the culture. You speak before you talk about business, before you talk about anything else. Hello, how are you? In their language, preferably try to learn those few things, and then you start talking about whatever it is that you're trying to. You don't just walk in and say, "Can I?" You greet
Yeah.
is very important. So,
That's
and
the
in the
same.
US, we're like, well, no, we get straight to the business. You're not in the
Thing. Yeah.
US.
I have to break myself of that habit in Mexico. I'll be like, "Do you have it?" I'm like, "Nope." Good morning. In the middle of a sentence, I will reverse it and be like, "My bad." I still have some of that, like 5 years, and I still have some of that American brain of being like, You say welcome, and I'm like, hello. Can you show me a little bit more? A little bit more. I'm also not a pleasantry person. Stephanie always gives me shit about this because she's like, if we have to write a challenging email and it's something that like both of us care about the response of, if I've written it, I'll send it to her like and be like, could you make sure for the hellos and the goodbye, like there's enough like sandwich. There's enough bread on that sandwich, and it's not just like
The
the meat,
meat.
the meat
Yeah.
of my middle finger, which is
Yeah.
what we're doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's because I'm not the hello, goodbye, how was your day person all the time. But it's important here, right? Uh, there and there, that's part of knowing where you're moving to, like we said before, what to expect. I want to take a little pause right now for a commercial break, but it's not for me. It's something I think you guys should know about. I've shared this resource here before, different a while ago, but Haymarket Books, I'm dropping a link, has 10 free ebooks for getting free right now. This is of no benefit to me. But if you've had a hard week and you want to read some books for free about liberation, I just dropped a link in the chat. Some of the books are, I saw one by Angela Davis, Freedom is a Constant Struggle, Ferguson, Palestine, and the Foundations of a Movement. The Black Anti-Fascist Tradition is in there. They also have, for all of the ebooks they sell, every ebook is off this week. Like I said, this I am not related to them in any way, but if you've had a hard week, if you want to read a book, if you want to think about your place in the world and how you can live the life you want to live and be the person you want to be here, there, or anywhere in the world. Um, their ebooks I guess their ebooks are normally $10, or 80% off, and they're $2. So the first list of books I sent is free, 10 free ebooks, but all of their other ebooks are $2 for, I think, until the 15th. So, 12, it says 12 days. Ebooks, 6 days left. 6 books left for free ebooks. No, 80% off all ebooks for 6 days. And then these 10 free books are for 12 more days. Boom. So get to read. Don't say Cheetah never did nothing for you. All right. Okay. So I saw that last night. I thought it was important because
Sure.
we should be reading. We should be reading people who make us think
Think.
about um I want to say like how secular the world is, right? Like what we're seeing now isn't new. And we've seen we have seen the end result of the cycle we're in right now, right? And we know that this does not end well for people who look like us. And so stay up, stay informed, read some thinkers. And I said we should. I hate saying should though. Do what you want to do. But like if you want more resources, there they are. All right. Okay. So when you went to Rwanda the 2 times, was there anything you regretted about the way you moved there, or anything you did in your preparation? Anything you should have done more of, less of, etc.?
No, not really. I think, and I thought about this earlier when I was moving around, that I would offer this. When you just said something, you said some people who want to move abroad are not ready to move abroad. I think that part of the preparation, which I did, no kudos to me, right? This was just, thank God, thank Spirit that it was dropped into me. I knew what I wanted to work on and go there to do. Why I needed to get away, what my purpose was. what my, mission was on myself spiritually, emotionally, physically. Because I say that because if you leave angry and ornery, you're going to be angry and ornery when you get there. You bring that
Mhm.
with you. If you leave sad and depressed, you're probably going to land sad and depressed. But are you going to let that spill over into the other people that you come into contact with? Or are you there to work on that and consciously, intentionally know that that's what you're going to do? If you leave happy and in a great place, you're going to arrive happy and in a great place. And are you going to build onto that happiness? So, in preparation, I would say for myself, if I could have maybe dove even deeper into my intentions, maybe that's the only thing I would have done
Mhm.
differently. But I had intentions. I understood why I was going, and so I think that I was the physical, financial, all that stuff. Whatever needed to happen happened. All my furniture, whatever, all that happened. I don't care. But it was the other internal stuff for me. So, yeah. Would I have prepared financially different? I mean, yeah, I would have had the residual income that I'm building now, the things that I'm putting into place and practice now, I would have done that. But I mean, at the same time, I always bet on me. I bet on my happiness, my peace, my joy. And so
Mhm.
I followed that more than I followed anything in the whole big wide world.
Okay. Now, when you moved to Rwanda the first time, you were just going to visit. It wasn't your plan to move in that moment,
Mm-mm.
right? And then you came back to the US, stayed for 3 months, decided for health reasons you had to go back. When you went back the second time, how long were you planning on being there?
I was planning on staying. I was
Hmm.
going to be there forever. I had a plan. I had a plan. I had a plan. I was like going to build my YouTube channel. The same financial things that I'm doing now, I was going to be doing that there then. That was the plan. So I was going to stay, and even if it wasn't Rwanda forever, I hadn't plans to come back and make the U.S. my home base anytime soon. Yeah, I had planned to kind of stay out and kind of bop around a little bit.
Now, for some people, their biggest fear is I move abroad, but oh no, the worst case scenario happens and I have to move back to the US. And that's what happened for you, right? Like I'm not saying that's your worst fear, but that you moved abroad and then you moved back to the US. Mind talking to us a little bit about that transition and what that looked like for you and why you made the choices you did?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I drew a little blank. I didn't intend to come back, but as I said, as I shared before, mom died the week when I went back. A week later, mom died, and so I went. The second time I went back, I knew I needed to go back for healing, but I also had a plan to, grow what I had. Well, and that was just a little retirement that I was pulling out. I was going to live off of it and grow it. Well, that year when I went back, I did nothing. Like some days I could barely lift my head off of the pillow. And I remember I had a therapist, and I remember him, not a therapist, what am I saying? He was more like a mentor. Um, and I remember him saying, "You know what? Can you afford to take a month or two and do nothing?" I was like, "Yes." He was like, "Do that and send me a picture of you watching the movie." And I did. And that month kind of went into two, into three, and I just wasn't doing anything, nothing. Like I would wake up, watch the sunset, go to the coffee shop, come back. I mean, at sunrise, watch the sunset. So I was doing nothing.
Mhm.
And I don't begrudge that. I cherish that time. I cherish those moments. But basically I started running out of money. So I started applying. Well, I didn't totally run out of money. So I saw what was coming because I wasn't doing anything. I wasn't doing anything. And I started applying for jobs. But as I started running out of money, I said, okay, well, I need to think about going back, and what that's going to look like. So I had everything set up. My sister graciously was like, come home, just come, whatever you need. She was so welcoming and open. But it was very, very, very hard because once I got home, so let me go back. I decided to come back because I could see the writing on the wall of me running out of money and not really having a plan B because I just didn't have the energy the nothing to do anything.
Mhm.
And I knew that something was wrong. That's very weird for me because as I said before earlier, I'm a hustle. Like I hustle, hustle, grind, grind, but I just couldn't. I had no juice, nothing. So I was applying for jobs. I even hired a Rwandan. I want to give her a shout out. Oh man, I should have wrote it down. She wrote my resume and all of these things for
Mhm.
me. She really helped me, and I had three final round interviews for these high level art admin positions. Didn't get any three. Came home because I was going to do the final round interviews in the U.S. Didn't get any three. And so it was very, very hard. I was living with my sister, you know, y'all, I just went through. I think I just settled down. No, not I think. I got back last November. I just settled into this apartment last month, which was October. I just told Rashida that my nervous system has just calmed back down this month, like over the past 2, 3 weeks. I started making these little pieces. But I'm trying to answer all your questions in one
It's
swoop, but
okay.
that's what happened. I didn't do anything. I kind of hit a wall as far as doing. And looking back on it, I would not change that. I mean, I'm kind of embarrassed to say it because who is able to take these months and do nothing? But it was thanks to y'all, thanks to Exodus Summit. I was making, I had my tablet and I was making these digital pieces, digital art, and I had these little pieces. I was making little pieces of art like this on paper.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was doing digital art. I would go in a coffee shop, and I could be found in any coffee shop across the city just doing digital art on my tablet. That's all I did. Drink coffee and do art.
Mhm.
And so when I say I did nothing, I mean work. I mean to bring money in. But I was making art. That's all I was doing, and that's what led me. That sabbatical, that artist, it was the biggest aha moment of my life that I didn't want to bring that hustle and grind back to my practice and to my creativity. And so now, though I do still have art for sale, I do it at a much more slower pace. It's more, I can really be with it spiritually. I call these little pieces the golden thread. And so
Mm.
I can be with it in this moment without thinking about, oh, I still have this overhead and my art has to pay it. It's a different vibe, it's a different mode. And I got that from really sitting in the coffee shop doing art. That was the biggest blessing of this entire thing. Getting back, there's a quote I love. It says, if ever you look up and find yourself lost, retrace your steps back again to the purest place in your heart and begin again. And that's what those months allowed me to do. Retrace my steps back to the purest place in my heart and begin again.
Mhm.
And so I look at this I want to call it turmoil season from when I got back to now as kind of like God shaking me up and saying, I've been blessed my entire life. No, I had a great childhood, and I've never had a season of struggle, one. But this was like that shake up to say, every little blessing. I lost my train of thought, but I'm just grateful. Like, I'm grateful to be an American. I'm grateful to, have my education and all the things that I have and experiences to be able to be back in this moment and be okay. Because I basically was down to nothing and I had to come back, and I'm back in this moment of just restarting,
Mhm.
and I'm grateful to be able to do that. So I'm about to get off the subject, but just let me say this one thing. I think part of, you know, we can we have privilege in the sense that we can leave a country that has an economy that also allows us or affords us the opportunity that if we need to get back in it and begin again. I say that from a place of I've been to countries and have friends who live in economies and countries where that's not an option
Mhm.
at all, right? Um, yeah, I'll let that sit right there. I don't know how that lands, with folks, but that's, yeah. Like I do some other things, right? But if there is no continual power in internet, I wouldn't be able to do them.
Right, right. Um, so you moved back, and what's your plan for your time in the US now?
So basically, just to rebuild.
I'm so sorry. I should have asked, is there for your rebuilding period, the question I really wanted to get the answer to is there a set amount of time that you want to be back in the US, or are you planning on is it kind of letting the universe unfold again?
I let the universe unfold always. So it's
Mhm,
no set time. I mean, I think I'm gonna be honest, I really miss my family. I miss my friends. I miss being not an outsider because you're an outsider, a lot of times when you're in these places. And so I'm really like really enjoying being amongst family,
mhm.
friends, familiar I can't say the word. Familiar, I can't say the word. Things that are
Familiarity?
familiar, right?
Yes. Okay.
Being around things that are familiar, understanding the system, not having to learn a new system. So for now, I'm enjoying really being back and being home, and my nervous system is just like settled. I'm really, really enjoying it. Yeah. So I don't know. I feel really grounded right now. And again, that's thanks to the sabbatical. So I can tell any woman that, like, take the sabbatical if you can. Or if you gotta force it, take it. Like, get in burnout to bliss and figure out how you can take it. But I feel
Mhm.
more grounded than I've ever felt in my life. So I feel good. I don't feel that same, I can't even explain what I felt, that heaviness that I felt before I left. That's gone.
But I was going to get back to that and saying that the things that you're enjoying right now sound like the same things that were kind of like weighing you down or bothering you before you went to Rwanda the first time, right?
Like what? What you mean?
When you were talking about like earlier, you talked about your friends and the friendships, and there were other things that made you feel like you needed a break.
You know, listen, the sabbatical, I can't say this enough. I have I've met friends and people that are family. Like the sabbatical allowed me to slow down in such a way where I was able to have these I like long, deep, slow conversations.
Mhm,
And I was able to have these long, deep, slow conversations, and I've gained friends that are spirit sisters, that are lifelong friends. So my friend group is actually different now.
mhm,
Wow. That's wow. Yeah. And these are people I connect with on a spirit, on a soul level. And
mhm,
so wow. That's part of the most amazing, probably the most amazing part. Being able to have developed those beautiful, long, slow, deep, intimate relationships and know how to do it. Because before I didn't know how to do it, I was come on, what you got to say? Da, 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 da. All right, boom. And then on to the next. Now I know how to have these long, slow conversations. And so, what did you ask me?
we were talking about how the things that seem to really be
Weighing me down
but seemed to weigh you down before,
or are
and
gone.
part of the reason that you needed change are the same categories of things that are like feeding you now.
That's so true because the job that I have right now, and I was very intentional that I needed something that fed me and was slow. So I teach gifted art, and what that is gifted and talented. I teach a small group of students who are into art. This is what they do, and that's all I do. That's I just teach them. my art has become more of a meditation, right? I still sell it. I have some stuff that I have at this Airbnb that's that can sell. So whenever that hits, that's great.
Hmm.
And in regards to the financial stuff, I had to have this level of patience and steadiness and flow to even be able to do that.
Yeah.
Because as you know, money can, you know, so now all the things that were weighing me down and had me stressed out and burned out and literally like about to crack up and, having health issues, I've learned how to resolve all of that through taking time to just be. And then
Hmm.
now how to manage it. So I think, I'm not sure, right? But I think if I feel it coming on again, I can know what to cut out and what to manage and how to get through it. And I think that unless we pull back from the US, from the hustle and bustle, from the grind, that we can't get to that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's really hard to identify the poison while you're drinking it, right? Like it's hard to heal in the systems that are hurting you.
100%. So I do art and healing. I do um, workshops for teachers, actually. But most so art, teaching people how to use creativity to heal, right?
Hmm.
And it's so easy. It's not even complicated. You don't have to have all these paints and da 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 da. Just your creativity, just and letting that flow. Yeah.
So, what would you say to someone who actually, you guys dropped some questions for Myesha about like the idea of moving and challenges about moving? Because I want to get your perspective. But what would you say to a woman who's like, I want to go, but I'm scared?
I'll say what my sister said to me when I was trying to consider studying abroad when I was younger. Um, she said, I was like, I don't know, I'm scared. She said, you could go, you could fail, but you could also fly.
Hmm.
And she was like, are you more afraid of failing? Would you be more, whatever it was? She was like, basically, you need to take the opportunity to fly.
Hmm.
And I feel like a sabbatical is your opportunity to fly because you can grow as a woman if you take this pullback. And
Hmm.
so you could fail. You can. You can, what happened to me where I totally shut down and could do nothing. And I
Hmm.
promise you, y'all, I tried. If you can call three of my friends, I tried. I tried to wake up every day and do a video. It was, listen, I remember my father was like, relax. You can you I think here is what I would say. Take the opportunity to fly. I know you're afraid. I know you're afraid. I know you're scared. It is scary. But take the opportunity to fly.
Hmm.
Fear will always be there. Where is fear? Where fear? You have to do it afraid.
Yeah, there's I think that your situation is what so many other women, like you faced a lot of women's greatest fears, which is what if I move abroad and I run out of money, right? And
Yeah, that's
it's
hard.
it's hard, but I feel like what we've learned from you today is that you were after being abroad, it was much less scary, right? Because you had different you didn't have all those pressures on you, right? You had it sounds like you were in a better place to cope with it and to manage it and to create a plan than you were when you were originally in your original spot in New Orleans with all the overhead and things kind of feeling like they were falling apart.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Oh, you're right. Okay. You're right. And Yeah, you're right. And I'm an entrepreneur, right? And I have family, right? Which we all do, but I'm an entrepreneur too. So I knew I always have in the back of my mind, I could do this thing or that thing. Um,
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking, I wish I knew what to say because I was about to say, yeah, you should make sure you have residual income. Some people don't know how to do that. But what do you have? And what resources do you have? Do you have like if you fail, right? Do you have your family, your friends? I don't know, your kids. I don't know. I wish I knew what to say. I don't.
Let's go back to like running out of money isn't failing, right? Like that's not that's so like if we can reframe that like even if the worst case situation happens, you still had 2 years of it. Well, you had a full year of a sabbatical, right? Like, and most women will never get that in their lifetime. So even if you run out of money, like I think we need to look back at like what we got from that time. And a lot of times our basically our pride won't let us take the risk because what if our friends see us not make it? What if our old coworkers that we told we were going to move to so and so, what if they see us move back? And letting that go, letting that pride go, letting the idea that like if it doesn't look the way I expected it to in the very beginning, it's a failure. Letting that go allows us to kind of look back and say like, what have I gotten from this? And the women in the audience are saying they can see that you have a lot. You got a lot from this experience, right? That like you seem really relaxed. You can take your time with things, that you don't stress. And I know that that's something that a lot of women would like to have and don't know how to get because it's hard to put all the stuff you carry down when you're in the US, right? And so a year or so or more or less overseas, even if you feel like coming back is the right choice at some point, it doesn't make it a failure, right? It makes it a different choice. You had people you could lean on a little bit here, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I don't actually feel like I failed.
Mm-mm. You
I
didn't.
don't. I don't. I
You
feel
didn't.
like, yeah, I feel like this was the best
Mhm,
money I could have paid for my
mhm,
life experience here on earth, for this journey, right? Because
mhm,
everything else, not everything else, but everything comes from God. But that money paid for me to become this woman.
mhm,
And I'm like, yeah, I would do it again. I
mhm.
would do it again.
I
The last
mhm.
11 months, I mean, but it
Since
is
you've been
what it
back,
is.
yeah,
Listen, it's the journey. It's
yeah.
the journey. It's the journey. I have friends who are well off and are like, I can't do that. I can't take a year. And I'm like, why? And they're like, because what if I lose it all? And I'm like, what if you do?
What
What
if you
if you
do?
do? Can
What?
you I'm not saying like, oh, that's just like nilly-willy, throw it all out the window, but can you make it again? And if you can't, could you be happy with can you go and find your happiness? Because you're not happy. You have all of this, but you're not happy. So can you take all this money that you have to go buy happiness?
Mhm,
To go and find happiness or get some semblance of it?
mhm,
It's a in many ways it's kind of like a choice. I don't know. I wish like I could unpack that part of it, so much, right? We don't have time for all of that, but yeah. It's a choice on how we want to live, how we want our happiness to to be manifested during our lifetime with what we have right now.
mhm. I there's an amount of joy that can come from like living life on your own terms that you'll never understand until you can actually do that. I On a podcast I was interviewed on recently, I talked about how my career break, I spent more money than most people do. I spent about $36,000, about $3,000 a month. traveling around the world, buying tickets at the last minute, booking things at the last minute. It wasn't like the most cost efficient way to do it. But I didn't have planning in me, right? Like I was not capable of the planning at the time. So it was whatever, you know. But that career break saved my life. I don't know. I would be a shell of the person I am today
Facts.
if it wasn't for that. And so
Facts.
I, knowing that this thing saved my life, I don't know what number I could put on it to say that would be too much money. But I think a lot of us, when we're looking at this for ourselves, can say like, oh, that's not working for a year, not making money. Even if it's $2,000 a month in Rwanda, that's $24,000. That's too much money if I'm not going to be making money. If you're at the edge and this is the thing that can significantly improve your life, can change your life or save your life, is it really too much money? And if it, instead of it being you, if it was a loved one, right? If it was someone, if it was your best friend, if it was a family member, would you pay that much money to save their life? Right? Like that's what it was for me. It saved my life. And so when people say things like, "Oh, but that's a lot of money." Like, yes and no, right? Like on paper, yes, sure. But in the grander scheme of things, like I don't know that I had 5 more years in corporate America in me. I don't know. I don't know. I say this all the time. 2 people who work next to me in 2 different jobs were married. One killed the other in a murder suicide. Like life is short. I right? Like I it saved my life. I know my sabbatical saved my life. And it's one of the reasons that I'm always talking about them because I know it can save another woman's life. I know that you can come back, even if you feel like you failed by coming back to America, if you can come back with the peace that Myesha has now instead of what she was feeling before she left, you've won. You've
I
won.
agree. I agree. I wish I could see the comments because I just hope that it is translating. I have
It is.
peace.
It
I
is.
have peace, y'all. I'm not even, and I had some devastating defeats and losses. Like stuff I don't know if I can't say I regret it, but it hurt, friendships and business and things that just went the way I could have never ever imagined.
Mhm.
And running businesses, I was done. I was done. I didn't know if I was cracking up or what. And that time to just stop
Mhm.
saved my life. If not saved it, it definitely transformed me into this more peaceful, purposeful woman.
There's and there's no price to put on that, right? Like even
Mhm.
if you're starting over doesn't there in an alternate universe
And
you
that,
wouldn't have been able to start over, right? Like
yeah.
things had gone differently, there may have been you may never have had this chance to
Well,
start over and feel the peace you feel right now.
I'll say what I just told another friend. I don't feel like I'm starting over. I keep saying that, but that's not really the term. I'm
Okay.
starting from wisdom, experience. I'm not starting over. Like,
Mhm.
I'm starting from all of that experience and wisdom, and I could not be doing any of this without the previous 20 years. There's a book by David Brooks called The Second Mountain,
Mhm.
and I feel like this is just the second mountain, and I'm happy.
Oh,
You ever
that's
heard of that book?
uh-uh.
I think that's a part that may be a book that women in Exodus Summit should probably read because he's been on Oprah a couple of times. He talks about how he had this amazing career and then he looked around, his kids were gone, all these things, and he realized that he was on his second mountain. And he started from the bottom of that hill, the bottom of that mountain, and
Mhm.
had to go back up. But he went back up with so much more peace and clarity and vision. He had a very successful career on the front end.
Mhm.
So it's just the second mountain. And how are you gonna, after that sabbatical, you come back to that second mountain and you're not struggling as much as you were up that first one. I don't know. I'm going somewhere with that, but I know our time is near. Our time is short, but I don't feel like I felt like failure. I never even thought about that. Like,
Mhm,
no. I just felt like, because I just feel like earth and life is just a journey.
mhm,
And, we think about money in terms of failure and success. But I've experienced already in my life that money comes and it goes. It can come in swoops, like, oh my gosh, and it can go. But I've learned, now as a wiser woman, how to make my money work for me and keep it. I'm learning that even deeper. So, yeah, that, anyway. But money is not a qualifier to me,
mhm.
it's necessary.
It's
I like to
necessary.
have it. It's very necessary. And I like quality. I like quality stuff. Like I said, I only have 4 or 5 pair of shoes, but they're quality because I know I need to keep them and I know I like quality stuff, but it's not a qualifier. It doesn't qualify me.
Right, right.
Hmm.
And I think it's an important lesson, but it's also a reminder that like you're the only person that can really create your values and decide what's most important to you.
That's so funny you said that. I was just about to say your inherent, I'm thinking that and you're saying it because you have to have inherent value.
Mhm,
Like my value for myself is inherent.
mhm.
Right? I don't see myself any less if I have 50 grand sitting in the bank or 0 grand. It does not, it doesn't affect the way I see or feel about myself. If I have 100 grand liquid or no liquid, it doesn't affect how I see myself. Right? What affects how I see myself is how I'm doing spiritually, emotionally, and physically. That's when I'm affected.
And that, once again, it's really hard to make any changes to that in the systems that are holding you down, right?
Facts.
It's not impossible, but it's really, really hard. It's really hard. It's much easier if you can separate yourself from your everyday oppressions. It's really easy to work on just you, right? To see what's up with you, how you feel, to hear the inner voice when you don't have a boot on your neck day in, day out.
Well, and also I think too to reframe that, for me, like I don't, and not just to like outright contradict you, that's not what I'm saying or trying to do, but I feel like, try not to look at these systems as your oppressor because and I
No, I
get what you're saying. Okay.
go for
Okay.
it.
Let's say I get what you're saying. I get, we're all saying when we say these things, but we have to also reframe our minds
Mhm.
around never get here's what I leave with. Here's what I am. Never get your resource mixed up with your source. Because if God says yes, who can say no? I don't care whose boot or perceived boot is on your neck. If God is saying it gotta go, it gotta go. And you gotta just live your journey of your life. And again, we could unpack that, but okay. I just have this faith and this belief that
Mhm.
we have to be conscious and cognizant of how we feel our places in the world and who's actually or what is actually ruling our world.
I agree with you, but I also think that we as Black women in America live in a place where the systems are generally against us, right? And when we gain an inch, people change the rules, right? That's not to say, and to your point, that's not to say that like that's the end of it all. But I do think that part of part of our having autonomy, right? And being able to make choices for ourselves is is making the right choice for yourself instead of thinking that the best is all that like it's going to be handled somewhere else, right? Like you have to take action for yourself that aligns with the things that you want to do, right? Like you going to Rwanda and staying in Rwanda because it felt right is the thing that helped change your life, right? And if you had said, I'm staying in the US because I know it's going to be okay, it may have been okay somehow, but you wouldn't be who you are today, right? Like there's
I
just,
hear you. No, I definitely hear you. Like you
I feel
can't
like,
stay within the same system that you feel is causing you harm in whatever way.
and
Yeah,
I'm not
I
saying you
get
can't
it.
stay. I'm saying that there's a benefit to leaving. You can everyone can stay in the system, even if not everyone thinks the system is causing them harm.
Harm,
You
right,
do,
right, right,
right?
right.
If you do, you can stay there. What I'm saying is, it's much easier if you believe the system is causing you harm. It's much easier to make a change when you're no longer in that same system, right? Earlier, you said something about how like when you went there, you could like see things that you couldn't see when you were in the U.S. And that's what I'm talking about.
Okay.
And not like I'm agreeing with you, but I think I just take it from like a different perspective that really I I really love to see Black women take agency over their life and say that these are actions that I can take that will make a change that will benefit me. And I think because I have um, some ancestors who were very much like, God's got me. And in that sense, abandoned all action besides praying. I've seen that I have challenges with that a little bit. I don't think that's what you were saying. I just like it's something that it's a thing for me. I'm gonna say that. So
Okay.
yeah, I think there's to your point, knowing that like there isn't necessarily a boot on your neck, right? I think part of that is like removing yourself from systems that feel oppressive, right? Like even if like they're not a true oppressor, even if you don't think it's a true oppressor, but like removing yourself from the system that feels oppressive is a radical action that you can take and then see what happens, right?
No, I definitely. I mean, I'm not oblivious to what you're saying. I agree. I think that right. You can't heal while you're drinking what's harming you. You can't.
Mhm,
You have to step back from it and say, okay, what's in here?
mhm,
I need to like pull back from this and get some of this, right? Before I can even hold the cup or deal with this.
mhm,
So, no, I get it. I mean, I'm not oblivious. I just want to be cognizant to me also how I like to frame my reality. So I think like what they always say on Earn Your Leisure, two things can be true. Two
mhm,
things can be true, right? And we live in this dichotomy, this constant dichotomy, this thing called life, this
mhm.
paradox that we call life. So yeah,
All right. Well, thank you, Myesha. We're a little bit over time now. Thank you for being so generous with your time.
this has been great.
It has been great. I'm glad we finally got to have this chat. If
Yes.
you, for anyone who's in my YouTube membership, we will start chatting in about 2 minutes when we get out of here. over on Zoom. The link was sent to you like it normally is. If you're in from Burnout to Bliss, we have our November group coaching this evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can still sign up if you're interested. It is a move abroad and career break program for Black women. Link is in the comments. It's pinned at the top. And I'll make sure I drop it in this description. Everybody else, I will see you same place next week. Myesha, thank you so much for your generosity and being here with us today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.